Well, welcome to the fifth 10-minute record review, and today we're going to talk about Pharoah Sanders' album Karma. And this is an album which first came out in 1969, and I'm basing my review on this reissue, which is a 1971 reissue, stereo reissue, but again on Impulse. So if you're approaching this album for the first time, if you're approaching Pharoah Sanders for the first time, what you're going to get here, and pretty much what you would get in any Pharoah Sanders recording, late 60s, early 70s, is spiritual jazz and avant-garde jazz. Those, of course, aren't synonymous terms. Avant-garde jazz, or the new thing, was a style which quickly evolved in the 1960s into free jazz and a lot of atonal and unstructured playing. Spiritual jazz is a little more accessible, and it tended to be, as the name would imply, a much more kind of an aspirational, spiritual, sort of reverential kind of music. But what it shares with free jazz is a focus on improvisation and the liberation from sort of typical conventional structures of scales and chords and so on. You'll find the hallmarks of Pharoah Sanders' playing, particularly in this period, where he would have some rather serene and sort of pastoral moments, but he would also tend to when he got the passion within him, to overblow and to which sometimes leads to a bit of a screeching sound. Can be a little aversive for some, but here it really works, I think, and he is relatively restrained, I guess you could say, in his use of it. The other thing which you'll find on this album is Leon Thomas's trippy, sometimes kind of dippy vocals. He is one of the world's only jazz yodelist. Anyway, it's a bit of an acquired taste. I personally really like the effect. Any discussion of the background to this particular album, I think, has to start with the breakup of the Coltrane classic quartet with Elvin Jones and McCoy Tyner and so on, and which occurs sort of simultaneously with Sanders, who is one of the few saxophonists who, Coltrane didn't have a lot of people who by the mid-60s were influencing him. He was pretty much influencing everybody else, but Sanders is an exception. And Sanders and Coltrane are kind of moving together in lockstep towards, from sort of the new thing and the avant-garde towards the spiritual. And you see this in one of Coltrane's later records, Om, as well. Anyway, so Coltrane passes away, and Sanders and Coltrane's widow, Alice Coltrane, are basically the keepers of the flame for the spiritual jazz piece that Coltrane was moving towards. And so this album comes out of that particular moment. It also, I don't think this album or any African American jazz music in the late 60s can be understood without really situating it in the anger and the disillusionment and the cynicism that came after the early civil rights era. Free jazz and spiritual jazz movements kind of took two different paths in response. The free jazz response, people like Albert Ayler or Archie Shepp, was really just to absolutely vocalize that rage. But spiritual jazz, while I think reflecting a lot of the same emotions of frustration, was much more inwardly focused. So the music on Karma is basically two pieces. The Creator Has a Master Plan, which is Sanders' best-known piece. It occupies all of side one and most of side two. And then there's a shorter piece following the Creator, which is called Colors, and which is similar in feel, although with some significant differences to the main piece. But the bulk of this album is given over to The Creator Has a Master Plan. This piece is is a wild ride. You can hear right off the bat an homage to A Love Supreme, not just with the opening fanfare, which is which instantly puts you in mind of that album, but then repeating simple bass figure, which is is very clearly a nod to the some 4-note pattern in, although this has a few more notes, but that recurring pattern that starts off A Love Supreme. And then what you get is a rhythm here. You get these fanfares, and then you get the band will settle down into a very simple kind of soothing pastoral rhythm with Sanders' sax sort of moving in and out. Thomas enters originally, at the beginning, yodeling, and then moving on to the lyrics, which are quite simple, quite beautiful lyrics to this in this particular song. Then you have crescendo, and certain points the band becomes quite impassioned. You have a lot of overblowing from Sanders. You've got for those who are unfamiliar with this record, a really good analogy from the pop world would be A Day in the Life by the Beatles, where you have again the use of a crescendo, which is almost frightening in its intensity, and then a sudden change of mood and a sudden change of pace. The changes aren't that sudden; they're a little more gradual here, but the moods go from the frenetic and the passionate to the calm and the spiritual, to the frenetic and the passionate again and again. I think probably 4 or 5 times, all the way through the half hour plus of The Creator Has a Master Plan. It's some of these crescendos are wilder than others. And there are a couple of rather fast-paced sections as well, where in particular in the second one, where Lonnie Liston Smith is playing piano like an absolute demon. Sanders plays several lovely solos. Lovely is maybe a strange word. Some parts of them are lovely, but always is that sense of motion, and that he is moving either towards this more peaceful space or then back into this almost manic, passionate passage. The album concludes with a number called "Colors," which is more than the other song. The other song on the album. This song is more of a vehicle for Leon Thomas's singing, and either you like it or you don't. I personally quite like it. The lyrics are again spiritual. They're about celebrating God's gift of the rainbow, which is a great thing. Thomas goes through all the colors. By the time you get to purple, I personally find it a little bit funny, but that said, I really like the song. It's really grown on me. Band sort of undulates all the way through this. It's quite calm and pastoral as a piece of music. They never really settle into a rhythm, but overall the effect I think is quite beautiful. This song, and at the very conclusion, Sanders hits really a lovely note, which brings the song and the album to its conclusion. So to conclude, avant-garde jazz, spiritual jazz isn't for everybody. As a starting point for this kind of music, this is a great entryway because it really is quite accessible, but it's also emotionally powerful. If someone's faith can somehow come through sonically, this comes through here. This is not a spiritually trivial record. This is quite a profound statement. It has one magnificent song and another tune, which if you like the magnificent song, you'll probably like the other one too, provided that you are on board with the way the vocals are handled. You could, I think, suggest that maybe Creator could have been shorter. I don't know that it could have been limited to one side of the album, and I don't know that would have lessened its impact, and that would have perhaps freed up more space, or would have freed up more space for a little more diversity in the album than I think there is. The other quibble, which is less minor, is personally the production, certainly on my version, sounds a little muddy. It still sounds good. These are minor quibbles, and I give this album 4.5 out of 5 stars. And this is clearly an essential album in any jazz collection.